There's this timeless story. It's about a wise sage, a traveler on a mission, and a simple pond. It sounds pretty basic, right? But trust me, it holds this incredibly powerful lesson about finding mental clarity. And let's be honest, that's something pretty much all of us are looking for these days.
So, our story kicks off with this traveler. He's journeyed for what feels like forever, crossing mountains and deserts, all because he heard stories about this brilliant sage. And he's not after money or power or anything like that. He's looking for something way more valuable: wisdom.
So he finally gets to the sage's village, finds him, and asks this one huge question. It's a question I think we've all asked ourselves, How do we tap into the best version of ourselves? How do we get our minds to really work for us?
Now you'd expect the sage to sit him down and give some big, profound speech, right? Maybe a complicated formula for success. But nope. The sage just smiles and asks the traveler to go for a walk with him in the forest.
That's it. And you can imagine, the traveler's a little thrown off. He came all this way for a life-altering piece of wisdom, and what he gets is a hike? He was totally ready for some brilliant instant answer that would just fix everything.
But here's where it gets interesting. As they walk, the sage says nothing, not a word. The minutes just tick by, with only the sounds of their footsteps and the birds. The funny thing is, the lesson has already started. The traveler just doesn't realize it yet.
For the traveler, though, this silence is just maddening. You can feel his impatience building with every single step. The walk feels totally pointless, and he's starting to wonder if this whole trip was a huge mistake. His mind is just a whirlwind of frustration.
And then, finally, after what must have felt like forever, they reach a clearing. And right there in the middle of it is this absolutely beautiful, calm pond. The water is so still, it's like a perfect mirror. This, right here, is the classroom.
The sage turns and asks, "What do you see?" And the traveler describes this perfect picture, right? The crystal clear water, the fish swimming peacefully, his own face reflected perfectly back at him. Then, the sage hands him a tiny pebble and says, "Throw it in." And the second that pebble hits the water, poof, the reflection shatters into 1,000 pieces, the fish vanish, and all that beautiful clarity is just gone.
And as those ripples are spreading out, the sage says the one line that ties it all together. This is the moment it all clicks, where this simple little demonstration becomes a huge insight into how we work.
And right there, watching those ripples fade away, the real lesson starts to sink in. The traveler gets it. The sage wasn't ignoring his question at all. He was showing him the answer, the only way it would ever truly make sense.
So this is the heart of it. When our mind is calm, it's just like that still water. It reflects the world as it truly is, with absolute clarity. But our worries, our frustrations, our impatience, those are the pebbles. Every single one disturbs the surface. And as soon as that happens, our perception gets all distorted and wavy. We can't think clearly, our focus is shot, and seeing the truth of any situation feels impossible. And all of this points to this one powerful idea: inner stillness. Now, this isn't about having a totally blank, empty mind. That's not realistic. It's about having a calm mind. It's creating that quiet space where our best ideas and our clearest thoughts can finally come to the surface without all the noise and distortion.
And in that moment, it's like a light bulb goes off for the traveler. He realizes the answer he was looking for wasn't some secret password. It was a state of being he had to create for himself. The key to unlocking his mind wasn't about adding more information. It was about finding that stillness inside.
Okay, so what's so amazing about this story is that it's not just some old fable. It's maybe more relevant today in our crazy nonstop world than it ever was. The forest might be different, but the challenge is exactly the same. So let's pull this wisdom into right now. This is the real question the parable asks us to think about. The sage used a real pebble, but our lives are just full of these metaphorical ones, constantly being thrown into the pond of our minds. And I bet they look pretty familiar. It's not always the big, dramatic stuff. A lot of the time, it's death by 1,000 cuts, Every little anxious thought about work, the constant ding of notifications on our phones, that feeling that we have to be productive every single second. Each one is a pebble. Our impatience for things to happen now, our worries about a future we can't control. These are the things that keep our minds rippling, making it impossible to see what's right there, just beneath the surface.
So the big takeaway here is actually pretty simple. The real goal isn't to stop the pebbles from ever hitting the water. That's just life. It's impossible. The real skill is learning how to let the water settle after a pebble has been thrown in. It's about cultivating patience and stillness as an active practice. Maybe it's just taking 3 deep breaths before you reply to that stressful email. Maybe it's putting your phone in another room for an hour. It's about giving yourself permission to just be for a moment, so the ripples have a chance to fade and you can see clearly again.
And that really leaves us with one final thought to sit with. Just imagine for a second, if your mind was that perfectly still, clear pond, what answers, what big ideas, what truths about yourself and your life might you finally be able to see? That's the potential that's always there, waiting just beneath the surface.